Hey, Roger here again. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I am going to be talking about how I lost a few years worth of data, and I'm going to be looking also at things that can be done, that you can do to mitigate against the possibility of these things happening to you too. No, there is nothing pleasant about losing data, especially if it amounts to data which should have taken you years to compile together. There's absolutely nothing pleasant about such an experience, but it is also a learning experience. It does broaden one's learning curve. All right, so let's jump right into it. So the situation is this: I've gotten this external hard drive a couple years back. I believe it was about 2007, 2008, thereabout. It's quite a while back. All right, gotten it from overseas. And the thing about it, the remarkable thing about it is that when I've gotten this is a 500 gig hard drive, 500 gig, and it is SATA. When I'd gotten this, it was just about the time when they were coming out. So a 500 gigabyte hard drive at that time was really very much uncommon. All right, so you see where I'm going with this. And it is also SATA. So again, you know that it was, just when these types of drives would have been released onto the market. All right. So I've been using it over the years as one of my local backup sources. And I realized that I switched it on one day. It wasn't coming on, and I just happened to do some investigation, and then I realized the culprit. Look here. This is what happened. This is the adapter for the enclosure, and somehow the wire got broken. Yes. And the enclosure was shorting out, and that led to the hard drive being damaged. The thing is that I had quite a bit of data on it, because as I said, I used it to back up some amount of my data from my laptop. I do have backup other areas, but what happened is that a good amount of the data that I had on this hard drive was not backed up anywhere else. So you see, it's the problem now. All right. So I tell you, when I realized what happened, it really hit me. It really hit me. If you notice, this happened like a couple of months ago, and even now I still have retained the hard drive because it is so difficult to detach myself from it, and I am still hoping that somehow, some miracle will take place and I will just, miraculously be able to, it will be revived and I will be able to recover my data from it. All right. So that was quite an experience. Sometimes you have data, so it may not necessarily only be, let's just say, pictures or photographs. So it can be data in other forms, and you don't have them backed up, and something happens and the hard drive is damaged or whatever storage is damaged, and you end up losing everything. That can be potentially dangerous. If you are a business person, you're an entrepreneur, let us say, and something like that happens to you, it can prove to be potentially disastrous for your business. So you want to ensure at all costs that you avoid, that you reduce the possibility of such a thing happening to you. You losing your data, you losing your valuable data. In this part of the video, I am going to be sharing with you how to create an effective backup system. What I'm going to be sharing here is applicable to you, whether you are a home user or you are an entrepreneur, you operate a small business. And the principles are applicable to different businesses, respective of the size. Firstly, you want to do a needs assessment. And it's pretty simply saying that you need to check out to see ideally how much storage do you need. Now, how do you do that? To consider how much storage you need to consider what it is that you're doing, what type of data are you storing, what type of data are you or information are you generating. So if you are doing stuff, if you are, for instance, into photography, into videoing and so forth, then obviously that area is going to require a lot of storage. Think in terms too of how much information, how much data you typically generate on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and that can be used as a guide going forward. Think also in terms of your retention period. How long do you normally retain the data for? Okay. You also want to think, I'm going to be jumping the gun here. I was going to talk about scalability, but you also want to look at your future need. All right. So, number one is to do a needs assessment. Do an investigation to find out how much space you need. Look also at your budget. Look at your budget. Third point is to consider scalability. So yes, you want to consider what your immediate backup need is currently, as in, ideally, how much space do you need today? How much do you need this month? How much do you need now? You also want to factor in the future. So perhaps a year from now, 2 years from now, what is going to be happening in the future, which may perhaps cause your need for storage to increase, and you want to factor that in. Because you don't want to go out, spend a couple of $100 to purchase some storage, and then when you realize it proves to be inadequate, when if you had made a much more informed decision, you perhaps could have gotten better storage, which would prove to be more cost effective for you. Number 4 is to consider if you're going to be going the route of automation or if you're going to be having a manual backup system. Now, with an automated system, of course, you'll be using some software to backup. You essentially will determine the time of day or night that you're going to be backing up, and the system will just automatically do that for you, and that is as opposed to you doing it manually. It is always a good idea to automate. All right. Next, you also want to consider security. So you have your external drives, for instance, or your thumb drives that you store your data on locally. How do you store those? And especially given the sensitivity of the information of the data on these external storage, and even on your laptop also, what security implement do you have in place to ensure that just about anybody doesn't have access to the contents of it? So you need to factor that in, and that may include things like encrypting the information on the drive, having the drives also in a secure location like a cabinet, and you also want to consider the type of cabinet. So it is not just ensuring that the cabinet is able to be locked, but is it fireproof? These are things that you want to consider. Number 6 is to look at the retention period. So how long will you be keeping a set of data or information for? And this too will go quite a way to determine the extent to which you will need storage and how often you may need to upgrade your storage capacity. And finally, you want to look also at how you dispose of obsolete data or information and defective storage devices. All right, so how do you go about doing that? Now, if you have a, let us say, a thumb drive with your data stored on it and it becomes defective, or you have an external hard drive or hard drives that become defective. How do you dispose of them? Do you just take them and toss them in the garbage? No. Bear in mind that you would have had sensitive information on these drives, and you need to be mindful of that when disposing them, even if in your view the drive is defective, I cannot access it. As it relates to a hard drive or thumb drive, you want to ensure that you're disposing of them properly. So you can consider perhaps a remedial method like taking a nail with a hammer and driving the nail through it, or having it shredded. As it relates to backing up online, there are quite a number of services you can subscribe to. Some are free, some you'll have to pay for. Samsung. So if you have a Samsung handset, then Samsung does in fact have an online storage service that you can subscribe to. There's also the iCloud, which is provided by iCloud storage, which is offered by Apple. Google, so you can create a Google account, create a Google Drive account, and by default you'll be getting 15 gigabytes of storage. Now outside of that, let's just say that you are a power user, you need a lot of storage, then you can subscribe to their Google One service, and that will give you storage starting from 100 gigabytes. Amazon also have their Amazon Drive, and their free storage for each person who has an Amazon account is a standard 5 gigabytes. And of course, if you need additional storage, you can pay for that service. And outside of these entities, there are other subscription services that you can utilize. Of course, this would be a part of what I'd mentioned before when I spoke about your budget, because if it is that you are going to be needing more storage than what is being offered free by any of these service providers, then you need to consider how much it is that you're able to pay for such a service. So we have come to the end of this video. I hope that you've been able to get some ideas from this video to set up your own backup system, and not only to set it up, but to ensure that you are following through and that you're backing up regularly. And I hope too that you never come to experience any data loss, right? Because that can be quite disastrous. All right, so until next time, take care. Before you go, it would be really good if you give me some likes on this video, and also if you were to share the video with your friends, your family, persons that you know will benefit from it. And also for you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet done so. I'm gonna ask you to subscribe. All right, that's it. Until next time, take care.